on his original stream, he unreservedly, unquestioningly promoted and pushed the narrative that it was an Israeli airstrike. This is the so-called unbiased independent investigation.
Because you get more people watching you of an evening than I do.
So annoying that he gets to just lie, completely lie on these platforms. God, we're going to watch the BBC glazing Hasan. What the
With us tonight is one of the most successful Twitch streamers, Hasan. He's a left-wing political commentator, a self-prescribed propagandist who has tens of thousands of people right now watching his 10-hour-long broadcasts on the situation in Gaza. In the past fortnight, I should say, he's raised from small donations over $1 million for the Palestinians. Hasan Piker, good evening.
Thank you for having me. I was privy to the conversation that you were having earlier, and I have a lot of thoughts on what was said, but also specifically on why the BBC is under fire for, in my opinion, engaging in objective news coverage for the first time in the conflict, in a situation where the fog of war presented facts.
It's honestly... The BBC, first of all, he did this with Piers Morgan as well, didn't he? But it's funny how the BBC, depending on what your point of view is either a mouthpiece of the British government or a brilliant, unbiased news journalism, depending on what your point of view is. It's the same with Channel 4 as well. People are propping up Channel 4 now as being this paragon of truth and virtue. During the Russell Brand stuff, it was a very different fucking story. Like, you cannot just fucking determine whether a news organization is good based on whether it is agreeing with your fucking biases or not. Dude, it's so stupid.
Coming from numerous different authorities. I believe that it is perfectly valid and understandable to assume, to make the reasonable assessment and reasonable assumption that the Al Ahli hospital was bombed from either an Israeli airstrike or new information coming from forensic architecture shows that it could have possibly been an artillery strike as well. This is just developing at this moment. And I think that covering it...
See, this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? This is why you know that Hasan Piker is never going to change. He's never going to change. Because it is true that there is an organization called Forensic Architecture, which has presented information that it could be an Israeli mortar thing. But there's also conflicting reports from other news organizations, including Associated Press. Associated Press has come out with their own report that claims that they are backing up the idea that it was this misfiring Hamas rocket. So it's like he's doing the thing that I mentioned earlier, where he is taking the one piece of reporting that agrees with him and he's presenting it as the absolute truth, or he's presenting it as an alternative to the other, the other situation. Like, there's no sort of gesture paid towards the fact that there is still conflicting reporting on this, and it isn't clear at all what has or hasn't happened, you know? So, yeah. And that's that's also on top of the fact that on his original stream, he unreservedly, unquestioningly promoted and pushed the narrative that it was an Israeli airstrike, even to the point where he was shouting at someone for daring to question him when there was conflicting information coming through. I mean, yeah, the fact he said he's just a propagandist, I mean, I don't know, man. You should not be taking this dude seriously. He said it so explicitly now. His actions make it clear already, but he said it explicitly. He doesn't care about the truth. He's a propagandist. And yes, obviously everything is propaganda. But there's certainly some organizations which, whilst being propaganda, are trying to get to the truth of the matter. But I don't think Hasan is interested in getting to the truth. And it's proven by the fact that all he's done is he's now propping up reporting that agrees with him, even though there's still conflicting reports out there.
Considering that the Al Ahli hospital had previously been bombed by Israel, 2 days prior or 3 days prior, on Saturday, bombed by Israel, where the cancer ward was damaged, where 4 hospital staff were wounded, and that the hospital staff themselves had said that the Israeli authorities had routinely.
Also, it's fun. Again, people will look to the alternative side and they will pick apart the biases that exist in the media reporting that disagrees with them. But then when they're promoting their own information, they won't highlight or talk about or think of the biases that exist there, right? Because if you actually look at the reporting that Channel 4 have done on this and the kind of organizations that are involved, whilst again, it's not a guarantee of anything, it's just pointing out that maybe a bias exists and to be cautious. Like the organizations that are involved, people are saying it's like an 100% independent investigation and therefore that's why it can be trusted. But these organizations are biased that have done this. Like, make no mistake about it. Like, you know, as much as you could say the Associated Press has got its biases, which of course it does, so do these organizations that are coming to an alternative conclusion about this. Let me see if I can find it quickly to show you. So, forensic architecture, I don't know much about any of these organizations, to be clear, okay? So, take that as you will. Forensic architecture, in its reporting on Twitter of this, was referring to the IDF as the IOF, the Israeli Occupation Force, which is terminology that's used by, you know, like Israel advocates to kind of highlight that they're not a defense force, they're an occupation force. So, you know, that's something that is worth just bearing in mind when you're looking at their analysis. Like, why are you front loading your own kind of analysis in just by using that terminology? Earshot, I looked this organization up, and again, it's not to say that it's I'm not saying it's proof of anything exactly, but if you look at what they are, sonic investigations for communities affected by corporate, state, and environmental injustice. So these are the people that have done the investigation on the Israeli call. I'm not pointing this out because I'm saying what they're saying is wrong, right? But it's just highlighting that people will always scrutinize like a mainstream press organization for their biases. But then these NGOs are potentially biased as well. And you must bear that in mind when you're looking at analyzing these circumstances, you know? Because I think it's fair to say that if your organization focuses on sonic investigations for communities affected by corporate, state, and environmental injustice, right? It's likely that your analysis is going to slant against the state and corporations and so on. I don't think that's like an unreasonable concept. And that being said as well, this reporting is being misrepresented. People are taking this video, which, you know, is worth watching and certainly has some worthwhile analysis to consider, but they're not only taking it as an absolute truth of what happened, on top of that, they're misrepresenting what the video says. Because they're not saying the Israeli call is fake. Well, I can play it and see. Oh yeah, there's this as well. There's this too. So this is the so-called unbiased independent investigation. I mean, first of all, they do say this, which is I agree with. A conclusive investigation into this attack requires full access to the site and munition fragments, as well as witness interviews. We continue our work on this case and reaffirm our solidarity with Palestinian people under attack, including our friends and colleagues. And this is one of the organizations that is part of the Channel 4 investigation. Like, surely people must understand that that calls into question their impartiality. Like, that's a pretty crazy thing to say when you're presenting this as a completely impartial, independent investigation. And on top of that as well, as I pointed out before, in their tweet thread, they refer to the IDF as the IOF, Israeli Occupation Force, which is, sure, the IDF is a politically loaded term in itself. The idea that they're defending Israel is inherently like a political concept they're trying to push. But that is how they refer to themselves. You must, in this instance, in my opinion, refer to any organization you're talking about in the terms that they refer themselves to. As I said earlier, you would use IDF for the Israeli Defense Force. And, if you're talking about a Palestinian organization that is controversial, like what is it? Is it the Palestinian Liberation Front? Is that it? You would refer to them as that. Like, you wouldn't refer to them as the Palestinian Terrorist Front, because that would be the same sort of bias from the other side. So it's a bit concerning that this org that is propping up all of this analysis is giving so much bias one way, even to the point where it's reaffirming its support for Palestinians, people under attack. And the thing is, on top of that as well, you've got other outlets that are coming to different conclusions too. The Associated Press released an article that comes to the opposite conclusion that these people come to. So I'm very troubled by the fact that people have not looked. I mean, it's not going to change anything. No one's learnt their fucking lesson, okay? People are still concluding, and they're literally just propping up whatever agrees with them, and not speaking to the fact this is still very contested, and Hasan is doing it right now. Also, another thing to point out with this, okay? So you've got forensic architecture. We've got the issue, as far as I'm concerned, the issue in the tweet thread of them using the term IOF and talking about reaffirming its support of the Palestinian people, which obviously calls into question, the unbiasedness of their analysis, right? Earshot, which is an organization which does sonic investigations for communities affected by corporate, state, and environmental injustice. And then you've got this Ramallah-based NGO, Al-Haq. What is Al-Haq? I had no idea. So I had a quick look. Okay. Al-Haq is an independent Palestinian human rights organization based in the city of Ramallah in the West Bank. Okay. And they profess to be an independent organization doing human rights stuff. Okay. Fortunately, there's this website called NGO Monitor, which, I don't know what the background of this website is. Potentially bias on top of bias on top of bias. Who knows? But they give some information here, and it is linked as well. Al-Haq is a leader in anti-Israel lawfare and BDS campaigns. Al-Haq's general director, Sharon Jarabin, is linked to the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine. So, just digging a little bit into this, and obviously there's way more research you'd need to do in order to, really come to sort of firm conclusions during the analysis of that. It's just a bit troubling that this is being represented as the absolute truth when the organizations that are involved in the reporting, like, there are certainly question marks around that. And just the same way, I am still in the position where I don't fucking know what happened, and I would not dream of saying one way or another what happened. But the Associated Press released an article that came to a different conclusion. And yeah, of course, they've got their own biases too, which are worth bearing in mind. Perhaps they're coming to certain conclusions off the back of their biases. But, like, this is not conclusive to the point where you can only prop up one side and go, yep, this is what it is. Here it is, look. AP Vision Analysis. Rocket from Gaza appeared to go astray, likely caused deadly hospital explosion. So this is like the Associated Press. weighing in on this.
Is a video that was being aired live.
But you get the idea anyway, right? The point is, we don't know, right? Stop fucking concluding and stop just propping up one news organization just because it says the things that you agree with, especially when the reporting is based on organizations that are potentially biased. That's it.
Been in contact with them, telling them to evacuate. And this evacuation order, of course, has been given to numerous hospitals.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, Hasan, I don't want to relitigate what happened on Tuesday night. Or suffice to say that BBC Verify have done they've done a deep dive into what happened, and people can go and read what BBC Verify have uncovered. And I think it's a fair assumption of what is in the public domain. But obviously, neither side on this argument is going to be satisfied until there's an independent investigation, and it's not something we're likely to get. So none of us can really assess what happened or who was to blame. What I want to get to is why your Twitch account, why your broadcasts each evening are so popular. What is it that your audience gets from you that it perhaps doesn't get from me? Because you get more people watching you of an evening than I do.
That is classic British self-depreciation right there, self-deprecation right there. You get more viewers than me. Oh my god, man. Is it going to be a glaze fest? It's only fucking 7 minutes long as well. You need to bear in mind with this interview, this BBC guy will have no idea about the intricacies of Hasan's position and views on this, right? He would have been told by some staffer, oh, we got this guy, big Twitch streamer, you know, speak to him about what's going on. Like he would, this guy's got less information and knowledge about Hasan Piker than Piers Morgan did. So it probably is going to be fairly limited. It's not, let's just say he's no Andrew Neil. He's no Andrew Neil against Ben Shapiro.
I think that one of the reasons why my broadcast, I guess, is relatively popular is because younger people are looking for alternative media outlets that offer a level of consistency and analysis from all sides
well, this guy here, he's not a particularly prominent BBC News guy. This is probably, I mean, you know, listen, I don't want to sound like, I think, honestly, seriously, it's great that Hasan has got on the BBC. Good for him, right? Fair play to him. It's a bit annoying, obviously, with what's happened recently, but it's good for him, obviously. But the guy that he's interviewing him is not like a prominent BBC dude. So this is probably like later in the evening, you know. It's like, you know, in like news shows, you'll have certain periods that are a bit quieter. So they'll kind of stick they'll stick something in there that maybe isn't like top line news stuff.
Is relatively popular is because younger people are looking for alternative media outlets that offer a level of consistency and analysis from all sides of any given conflict, any given.
It's so annoying that he gets to just fucking lie, completely lie on these platforms. All sides. Where was the all sides when you were fucking shouting at some poor sap in your chat because they dared to question the narrative that the IDF had just launched a fucking bomb, dropped a bomb into hospital, leveling it, by the way, leveling it. Fuck me.
Even any given real-time situation, cutting through the fog of war is obviously a very difficult thing to do, especially when the electricity and power and internet is shut off in the Gaza Strip. But you know, we make do here, and I think that's part of the reason I have a lot of on-the-ground reporters that I trust. I have a lot of reporters that I trust in America and also in Israel, alongside on the Palestinian side that I take from when I'm engaging in this.
Hasan sells people a simplified narrative of reality. People who want the world to be black and white, good versus evil, and want to be told they're part of the good team because they consume his product. Yes! That's what I'm talking about. Honestly, I feel like this whole thing. I don't know what I'm going to say. Let's just keep going. Come on.
This kind of coverage, and I think there's a more personal component to it as well. But last but not least, I guess the main difference here is that my perspective, which I'm very open about, is biased. I believe in the emancipation of Palestinians. I believe that they have a right to return. I believe that there should be a single, solitary, secular nation state where Palestinians and Israelis have equal rights. I believe in punishing the war criminals, not just on the Palestinian side as well, who have done ruthless and brutal attacks against civilian populations, but also on the Israeli side as well with the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. These are things that I believe.
God, he's just getting to ramble on about his talking points. The thing is, you know, credit for saying you're biased, I guess. Like, that's good that you're admitting that. But the thing is like, it's like he's saying, I'm biased, but I'm biased in a good way. I'm biased for the good guys. Like, I'm biased, but I'm biased for the side of truth and justice and you know, the emancipation and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not good, though. It's not good just to be biased in one direction. And obviously, again, this BBC guy is going to have no idea what the reality of his coverage is. But the way he's presenting himself and the way he does his coverage is so far removed from the reality of what it looks like, particularly that stream after the explosion at the hospital. God, honestly, that is so annoying. What's so annoying is the way it's been manipulated as well, because now he's got a video up on his channel. Now he's got a video up on his channel that says, did Israel bomb the hospital? And he can act like he's being measured the whole time. I know I said something a bit wrong, but my overall narrative is reasonable. I know I told you this and I told you this and I told you this. And that whole stream where he was just schizoing out, going absolutely insane, has been like, you know, wiped from memory. You do.
And I am.
So, do you think you reflect? I mean, you say you're a self-prescribed propagandist. You say you have bias in a Palestinian direction. Is there a danger that people?
No, not bias in a Palestinian direction. I have bias
towards a particular view on the conflict.
Come
on, Anchor, earn your money.
Conflict, but against all people that are subjugated, all people that are under fire. There is no difference from my perspective between an Israeli child and a Palestinian child. And I believe that, unfortunately, due to...
Unless they're baby settlers, of course, as he famously now has said. I didn't actually watch his original coverage when it first happened. I only saw like some of it via Ethan calling him up for the Israeli rape comment, for example. You defend BBC and Channel 4, then they let Hasan on and we all trust BBC and Channel 4. What do you mean? I'll defend the BBC and Channel 4 if I think they're right and correct, and I'll say they're wrong if I think they're wrong. I don't know.
To the way that we've manufactured consent for decades over the war on terror. Most people in the Western world, whether they recognize it or not, do not cover the victims of a larger state power, especially when they're Arab, especially when they're Muslim, like they're full human beings. They're just enemy combatants. They're usually seen as enemy combatants. And I think that the water gets muddied in this regard. And I think it plays into what the IDF likes to propagandize is the fact that they're the most moral army. And that we're having this conversation in the eve of more than 3,400 Palestinians being murdered by the IDF in an ongoing campaign. The defense minister...
Also, I keep... Where are these figures coming from? I keep hearing these enormous figures being quoted. And I'm like, where are we getting that info from? Normally it's the Jews that are doing that, isn't it? But listen, we believe in both sides here on the Chud Logic channel. So we have got two memes. I can't find, if anyone's got it. We've got two memes. We've got the Gazan Health Ministry one, and we've also got the Israeli Health Ministry one too. Just so we can both sides it.
Minister has openly said we're fighting human animals. That's why we have to cut their food, their water, and their electricity. These are all war crimes. These are war crimes when Russia does it. These are war crimes when Israel does it. Okay. And yet, for some reason,
get in there, get in there,
muddy the waters.
Come on, get in there.
Enemy combatants and then there are civilians, and they're just collateral damage.
Hasan, I'm pressed for time. I've only got about a minute 40 left. But one of the things that worries me, and it sort of relates to how I come under attack on this programme, is just how quickly, after the events of the last 2 weeks, how polarising the debate becomes, how everybody seems incapable of seeing the other's perspective or point of view when it comes to this issue. Why is that?
I think it's polarizing because people, like I said, do not see the humanity of those who are under colonial subjugation.
It's polarizing because, one of the reasons at least, propagandists push extremely volatile narratives very quickly that leads people to form conclusions that aren't based on good evidence. That's at least one of the reasons. There's probably other things too. Like, he is part of the problem when he does a stream, soying the fuck out and going ballistic over the fact that there's been an explosion at a hospital, that Israel are definitely responsible, and the hospital is leveled, and 500 people are dead. Right? So people get in a fucking fervor about it, right? And then, when they go out and they talk about it, they have got their fucking blinkers on. This is how it happened. I saw it on this guy's stream. Da-da-da-da-da. Not just Hasan. There's obviously others too. People looking on Twitter and stuff, whatever. But then they go and argue so vociferously for a position that they haven't even necessarily investigated or interrogated themselves. They are just copying whatever the perspective is of the person that they like, that they've engaged with on this topic, right? Rather than actually, do what you should do, which is to look at a broad range of news reporting and do your best to come to a conclusion about what you think happened. Oh, yeah. We got both. We got that one. I thought we needed it for balance's sake. And then the other one's coming.
These are the ever since the Nakba, Palestinians have not been able to return back to their homes. 700,000 originally in 1948, and there has been a brutal occupation that the Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International now correctly consider to be an apartheid state. This is, of course, I would say, 20 years after Nelson Mandela.
Also, I just want to say as well, it isn't just Hasan. And, just to be clear, it is both sides. But there's absolutely an insane, propaganda from the other side too. There's that one guy that they were saying was like the Israeli representative or something. I don't think he was the Israeli representative. I don't think he works directly for the Israeli government. But he is like the other side of the same coin, where he is just pushing out breathless Israeli propaganda without question, right? Ben Shapiro, yep, another good example. Another good example, Ben Shapiro. He's also just an absolute insane propagandist on this topic. Oh, this is the other one. Look, we got both. Look, guys, we can call out both sides. Here we go. Look at that, see?
Considered Israel to be an apartheid state, and I feel like he knows a thing or two about apartheid states in general. And it's not necessarily a polarizing subject. It's just that there are right-wing forces inside of Israel that are utilizing this. It
absolutely, by its nature, it is a polarizing subject, and it's made worse by ideologues and propagandists. Like, I don't know. It's like a decades-long conflict. Ethnicity, religion, cycles of violence. Like, of course, it's going to be. But again, we have to go back to Israel bad. So stupid.
The conflict as a means to continue. That there are right-wing forces inside of Israel. Mandela had considered Israel to be an apartheid state, and I feel like he knows a thing or two about apartheid states in general. And it's not necessarily.
Wait, yeah, that was like a Google search.
States in general.
Jesus. I mean, to be fair, this is a fan channel, I think, so they're doing their best. Listen. You can make good money off of Hasan's content, okay? I'm sure this person probably makes way more money than I do. Jesus.
And it's not necessarily a polarizing subject. It's just that there are right-wing forces inside of Israel that are utilizing this the conflict as a means to continue getting more land grabs and continue the brutal occupation in the West Bank as well, which is completely unjustifiable and illegal by international law.
Oh, he's going to cut it off. He's trying to cut it off.
Hassan, I'll have to cut it there because we're about to go to a break, but it's been lovely to talk to you. Congratulations on the success of your programming. Good to get your perspective as well this evening. Let me just show you the picture at the State Department, which we're watching closely for an update.
Yeah, listen, guys, you know, you probably have it in American press as well. And maybe if you've seen the Andrew Neil interview with Ben Shapiro. I mean, the problem you've got is, again, this is like just some guy that probably hosts a late night show, needs to fill time, and, you know, isn't there to like argue the toss necessarily. It's not an Andrew Neil situation, let's put it that way. God, Andrew Neil's the thing with Ben Shapiro is so good. Andrew Neil is actually a great journalist, even though he's a bit of a conservative old boy. Not a good look for your hero organization. Why are people saying that this... The BBC is not a hero organization. The BBC is massively misrepresented by people as the British State Department mouthpiece, or, you know, they get heavily criticized when they get something wrong. I just want a bit of balance where people recognize that it's not exactly the way that these retards present it. You're not getting a free license, buddy. Give it up. I don't have a TV license, but that's because I don't watch live broadcast TV. You only have to have one if you watch live broadcast TV. And I only watch streaming stuff. Not the BBC iPlayer even. So that you're not going to get me on that. Yeah, I mean, you know, I feel like I mean, there is a tradition of like hardline bulldog British broadcasters, news journalists that will just like Jeremy Paxman is a great example. I think he asked there's one where he asked a politician the same question like a bunch of times. Like he doesn't let politicians do the little politician shit, you know? What is a TV license? So in the UK, BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, is owned by the state and funded by the state, and that's via a TV license. You pay for a TV license, and that constitutes, I think, like 90% or something of the BBC's income. And then that obviously is used to pay for all their programming and whatnot, staff, offices, whatever. The BBC does trend towards whatever government, in my opinion, it tends to trend towards whatever government is in power at a given time. Because obviously, you know, the problem I've got with it is people act like it is like Russia Today, and it's just not. It is literally nothing like Russia Today. The state do not have like a direct editorial line and control over what they say. There's influence, definitely. You can point that out. But it's not like the British state mouthpiece. And there are times when they will publish stories that are critical of the British state, or critical of even internally the BBC. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, you know, it's not to say that it's completely unbiased and based and everything's fine. They definitely trend and lean towards being more positive towards whatever government is in office. But the representation of it being like state propaganda is absurd. People that act like it's like North Korea or Russia Today or whatever fucking Chinese broadcaster, like it's just nowhere near the same. Anyway, enough about the BBC. It's like Twitter wanted to put a label on the BBC that was the same label they applied to like Russia Today. And I think the BBC kicked off about it and were like, that's absurd. And I think eventually Twitter backed down. But they wanted to label it as like a state broadcaster. The BBC is one of the best features of our country, and this bed blob refuses to pay £100 a year to keep it running. Wait, what's this? Which news coverage do you think has more bias? The BBC or the leaked Hamas gore videos? What the fuck? I just, honestly, I'm very proud of our great nation, and it annoys when people say wrong things about it that is just stupid.